Hello and welcome to TVB News. 82 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Hong Kong today. Most of them are locally acquired. 3 patients also succumbed to the virus. They include 2 elderly people and a 49-year-old man. All of them had chronic diseases. Dongyao has details.
Authorities worry there might be a COVID-19 outbreak at a boarding house in Tai Po. That's after 2 foreign domestic helpers who regularly visited the boarding house came down with the virus. They each lived with the families they serve in Hong Kong and Tai Po respectively. Authorities are screening contacts related to the location.
I learned that there are maybe a few preliminary positive cases, but I understand they are also foreign domestic helpers.
The virus-battered residential house at Cheng Tao Estate has seen 2 more COVID-19 cases. The outbreak has involved 6 units of the block, and 3 of them are from flats in Unit 15. Experts, including Government Health Advisor Yun Kwok-yong, inspected the building this afternoon, but didn't find any drainage issues. The experts, however, believe there might be ventilation problems in the building's upper floors. They suggest all residents of flats located above Unit 2315 to be evacuated and quarantined.
We will issue compulsory testing notice for the whole building because there are quite a number of units being affected at the moment already.
Meanwhile, voluntary testing was carried out at another virus-hit building of Choi Wan Estate in Ngao Chi Wan.
Residents need to collect their deep throat saliva samples at home. They can then hand the specimen kits back to the house lobby between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. And upon residents' request, authorities have extended the sample collection process until Wednesday.
Elsewhere, further COVID-19 infections have been reported at care homes. Recently diagnosed patients include a nursing home cleaner in San Po Kong and a resident living in a single bedroom at a care home in Kowloon City. Dongyao, TVB News.
In the city's 4th wave of coronavirus infections, the recent death of a 42-year-old patient, according to experts, should be cause for alarm. That's not just because of her relatively young age, but also due to how quickly her condition deteriorated. At least one expert believes her life might have been saved by earlier treatment. She's the 3rd youngest person to die of COVID in Hong Kong and had no prior history of chronic diseases. But it took just 10 days for the 42-year-old's condition to deteriorate from the onset of symptoms to her eventual death Saturday. In between, she waited 3 days before seeking medical help. When she was sent to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, she already needed intubation and intensive care. Dr. Ivan Hong from the University of Hong Kong says the deceased might have been infected as early as late November, and delayed treatment could be the cause of her tragic passing.
By the time she presented to the hospital, it's already too late. If she comes in a little bit earlier, then if she's given treatment within the first week, then we can contain the viral load.
When she was hospitalized, he believes she had progressed to the inflammatory phase with a flurry of immune responses called cytokine storm. That's when the immune system starts to blast off inflammatory cells in a bid to fight off the pathogens.
When you have inflammation settle in, then the cytokine and chemokine storm will subsequently lead to other parts of your body being inflamed as well. And that will also put a burden on your cardiovascular system, your renal system.
But the flare-up was so severe that it could not be controlled by drugs like remdesivir. And the overreacting immune system eventually led to organ shutdowns, in her case, respiratory failure. And the cytokine storm is not a rare occurrence. Dr. David Hui, a medical expert on the government's pandemic advisory team, says 20% of COVID patients will experience that. He reminds the key is to seek medical treatment early. Hui says it's especially important when one continues to run a fever. It's a sign one should get tested for the coronavirus. Travelers arriving in Hong Kong on December 21st are required to book a room at the designated quarantine hotel before departure. This after it was announced that, starting on December 22nd, all inbound travelers from anywhere outside China must stay at a designated hotel for their 14-day isolation. These travelers will also need to take designated transportation from the airport to their quarantine location. Some of the 36 designated hotels may start operating as quarantine venues starting on December 18th. The government is ready to start providing designated transportation at the same time. Coronavirus vaccines are hitting the city as soon as next month, and their suitability for child use is drawing questions. Last Friday, the SAR government reviewed procurement plans for 3 types of COVID-19 booster shots. They include mRNA vaccines co-developed by BioNTech, Pfizer, and Fosun Pharma. The jabs have been tested on teens over the age of 12, but the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has only authorized the emergency use of them on those aged 16 or older. Clinical trials have only been conducted on adults for the AstraZeneca Oxford University jabs.
Because children has a smaller body size, we usually expect, say, we can reduce the dosage a bit. For example, for a child of 1 year old or a child of less than 8 years old. But all these are hypothetical at the moment because we really need to do research to know the response to the vaccine. And of course, if we can use a lower dose to achieve the same effect, then hopefully the side effect profile would also be lower.
Google has reported widespread outages affecting dozens of its services. Platforms including Gmail, YouTube, and Google Drive were down briefly between 7 and 8 p.m. here in Hong Kong. Both individuals and business users were unable to access these services. However, Google's search engine remained largely unaffected. There were problems internationally as well, but disruptions appeared especially serious in the northeastern U.S., Britain, and Europe. In Asia, India, Singapore, Malaysia, and Japan were among the hardest hit regions. A warehouse worker has been sentenced to 3 months in prison after being found guilty of possessing a weapon, a laser pointer. Zheng Minghe was arrested at an anti-government protest in Central in November last year. During a hearing at Eastern Magistrates Courts, the prosecution said the 28-year-old had shown a laser pointer at police officers for around 40 seconds. Magistrate Peony Wong said the defendant deliberately attacked the officers with a laser pointer, even though it was not powerful enough to hurt anyone. Zheng was granted bail pending an appeal against his conviction. Overseas, U.S. shipments of coronavirus vaccine are fanning out from major hubs en route to distribution points around the country. The inoculations are seen as pivotal to ultimately halting a surging pandemic that is claiming more than 2,400 U.S. lives a day. James Aiken reports.
The first trucks carrying a COVID-19 vaccine for widespread use in the United States pulled out of a Michigan manufacturing plant on Sunday. The launch of the immunization project is critical to stopping the nation's coronavirus outbreak and is unprecedented in scope and complexity. The shipments of dry, ice-cooled packages of the Pfizer vaccine must be kept at subarctic temperatures. Initially, about 3 million doses were expected to be sent out. The priority is healthcare workers and nursing home residents as infections, hospitalizations, and deaths soar in the U.S. With numbers likely to get worse over the holidays, the vaccine is offering a bright spot in the fight against the pandemic that has killed nearly 300,000 Americans. On Fox News Sunday, the chief scientist leading the White House's Operation Warp Speed said political pressure from the top has not been helpful for building public confidence in the inoculation campaign.
If that phone call happened, I think it was useless and unfortunate, and so are some of the tweets. There was a lot of noise on top of us in terms of the politics and the tweets and the campaigns, etc., on all parties, but that did never translate into any kind of interference of any sort.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday he was reversing an administration directive to vaccinate top government officials against COVID-19. The announcement came hours after his administration confirmed that senior U.S. officials would be offered coronavirus vaccines as soon as this week. The first deliveries of 30,000 COVID-19 vaccines have also arrived in Canada, and the first shots could be given later today. The country has more than 454,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases. James Aiken, TVB News.
Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga may further restrict a much criticized travel subsidy program in a bid to contain mounting coronavirus infections. Suga's office says he will chair a coronavirus meeting today to discuss plans regarding the travel campaign. Tokyo reported record high cases of the coronavirus on Thursday. Germany is closing most stores and schools and further limiting social contacts in an effort to drive down infections that have remained high in recent weeks. Chancellor Angela Merkel and the governors of Germany's 16 states agreed Sunday to step up the country's lockdown measures until January 10th to stop the exponential rise of COVID-19 cases. Germany recorded 20,200 newly confirmed cases and 321 additional deaths Sunday. In Italy, officials say the vaccination campaign against COVID-19 will